Thanks very much for your time in listening to a brief statement about the AMA's thinking on the COVID crisis, particularly as it pertains to Western Australia today. The AMA has been firmly of the belief for some time that we can fix the economy best, get people back to where they want to be in life best, by fixing the health problem that we have in the community first, and then concentrating on the other. We know that it's incredibly distressing, and we know that it's very bad for people's health, in fact, for the economy to be going badly. But if we don't fix the virus as our first priority, then we won't be able to get on with fixing the economy as soon as we'd like to. Essentially, we're, as a community, playing chicken with an invisible virus that can be in people who don't have symptoms. 10% of the people tested on the Diamond Princess cruise ship who were positive had no symptoms. If we are ready and we don't get overwhelmed in the hospital system, then we will save many. We will look more like Singapore, who have had 30 patients go through their ICU on ventilation successfully, or Hong Kong, who saved 9 out of 10 in their ICU. If we're overwhelmed on the front line, then many will die that we could have otherwise saved, and we'll look a lot more like Italy, which is not their fault. They did not see this coming in those areas, but we have the warning. We know that we could be in Italy or a Wuhan, or if we're prepared and the number of patients are controlled, then we can avoid getting overwhelmed. This is why we're respectfully questioning the government's approach, because particularly our frontline doctors, nurses, orderlies, cleaners, everyone else have skin in the game. They're going to be in the middle of this, and they want to be in a system that is certainly going to be full, but able to do its best for the people who arrive. They don't want to be in a military hospital style situation of having to deny treatment to people who on any other day in Western Australia would get the world's best intensive care results. The questions that we're asking then are around the number of patients, because we feel like we're running blind. We've tested hardly anyone due to our restrictive test requirements. Private pathology stands ready to contribute. They could be taking patients straight from general practice who have symptoms and testing them, but they've not been allowed to do so yet, and we don't understand why. Part of this may be due to a belief within the government that there is not community spread. A lot of frontline doctors, nurses and others believe that that view is outdated, that there is good evidence to think that we do have community spread, and the reason that we're not finding it is because we haven't allowed enough testing to see it. We now also have the problem with the cruise ships, which we'll get to more in questions, I'm sure, but that unfortunately sets us back on our schedule if we have more patients coming from that source. And I think that everyone around the world by now understands that that's possibly one of the worst places to be during this kind of outbreak. And I'm sure the community of Perth and certainly all the doctors of the AMA, our heart goes out to those people. And if we need to provide them with support, then of course we will treat any human. The reason that we want a full lockdown now is to control that number of patients to give us time to better prepare. The social distancing measures are all there to just reduce, everyone knows the term flatten the curve now. So because of all the unknowns in the equation and now the arrival of these ships, we believe the population are ready to cooperate with what India is doing, with what many in the United States are doing, with what they're doing in Italy, with what they're doing in the UK. We understand there's disruption from these things, but there's more disruption if we let the health system get overwhelmed. The other aspect here is the preparation and how that's going. Our doctors on the front line are not convinced that it's on track. This is probably partly because of lack of transparency. The directors of regional hospitals are telling me they are getting no answers. I reassure them slightly by saying that the directors of metropolitan hospitals are not getting any answers either to the questions they're asking. And this may simply be that the command group who are looking at this in a command and control fashion just do not have the time. They haven't got the bandwidth to answer anyone's questions. But these are important questions, and the questions come with feedback, and none of that at the moment is being fed into central control, which means our confidence is being dented in the process, respectfully. We're gratified that the Minister has agreed, the Health Minister has agreed, that the representatives of the profession from aged care, from general practice, from the hospitals, will be able to meet with the implementation team, the Chief Health Officer and his team, in order to get some answers and some transparency, particularly around what are your projections and how well prepared do you think we are. We'll take all those questions to the government, and we're really glad that they've agreed to help us with some answers there. But we're nowhere near ready. We don't have the right PPE for our staff. Once we get all the information on the table, then we'll be able to update the front line and give them more reassurance. I can give you one piece of good news, which is that it seems pretty much everyone in Perth has a connection to someone in China who wants to sell us some masks. Now, actually getting those here will be a Herculean task to get the actual equipment and so on that we need, but there are signs that the Chinese are ready to export, and if that is true, another couple of weeks delay through your patience as a community by putting up with lockdown may mean the difference between a healthcare worker falling ill from this disease or having the right care on the job.